lots of videos out there from very successful Instagrammers sharing how they plan and schedule out their Instagram content, how they make it and edit it, and they're all very helpful, but they usually involve apps that you have to download from the App Store that just take up extra space on your phone, and a lot of them even cost money. So I'm going to share how I do all my Instagram planning and editing for free. Now, because this is all done for free, it's not necessarily the most glamorous technique, but it works really well for me. I've tried the more glamorous ones where I download the apps that are made specifically for planning out Instagram content, and it just hasn't worked as well for me as this. So these methods are not super glamorous, but they get the job done and they work really well for me. In fact, I feel like I am better at staying on track with my Instagram content and keeping it planned ahead of time using these techniques, because downloading all those other apps, like apps to help you plan out your content and like make content calendars and stuff like that, because it was a separate app, I always just forgot to look at that app, and like I never checked it and I would forget to plan. And then if I did plan stuff out, I would forget to look at it to be like, oh, what do I need to post today? So honestly, this is just way more efficient for me, and it just helps because I'm using apps that are already on my phone that I'm already looking at all the time anyway, so I don't forget to keep up with my Instagram. So let's just start with posts. These are the ones I plan out the most, and they require the most generic app on your phone, the Photos app. Now, just a little disclaimer, I have an iPhone, so I'm referring to the Camera Roll app. I don't know how the Photos apps work on other phones, so I don't know if all these things are included in the Photos app, but I assume that they're probably pretty standard, so I'm assuming this could work for most phones. So in my Photos app, I have an album titled Right Brain Rach IG, and that's literally all that I use to plan my Instagram content. So make a new album in your Photos app, title it, the username of your account, IG or Instagram content, whatever works for you, and this is all you're gonna use to plan out your content. No separate apps, no extra purchases. This is all just built into your phone, and I don't know about you, but I look at my Photos app pretty frequently, probably almost every day, so it's right there and I don't forget about it. It's also nice because all the photos that I'm planning to post on my Instagram account are already in my camera roll on my phone, so I just have to add them to that album instead of having to like import them into a separate app. Also, the default layout in the Photos app on the iPhone at least is 3 photos per row in squares, so it looks exactly like it will look on your Instagram feed, so you know exactly what to expect. So when I'm planning out my Instagram content, I just add all the stuff that I know I'm going to be posting over the next few weeks into that album, and then I just rearrange them. I kind of do this as I go along, so sometimes the order will change when I get closer to whatever I'm about to post. But all you do is hold down on the picture and drag it around and put it wherever you think it fits best. And that's literally it. And then you have your Instagram content laid out in the order that you plan to post it, and you can see exactly what it's going to look like when you share it to your feed. And then the next thing that's really awesome about this is, again, I don't know if it's like this in all photo apps, but on the iPhone at least, if you click on a photo, you can swipe up and then it says add a caption, so you can add caption ideas to the photo directly in your Photos app, and you don't need to put them anywhere else. You don't need to type them out in Notes and then go back and copy and paste from there. You literally just, you lay out all your photos in the order you want to post, then you click on them, you swipe up, and you type out a caption idea, and it's that simple and it's right there. If you don't want to type out a whole caption right then, you can just put bullet points of like what you want to include when you do come to write the caption. You can put a date of like this photo is going to go up on this day, and it's just really helpful to have it all in one place on an app that's already on your phone and already has all the photos you're going to post. So that's literally it. That's how I schedule my Instagram posts and plan out my content. It's just in this one Photos app that's already on your phone, and you can even do the captions in that app. I've tried other apps. I've tried downloading like content calendar apps, one called Preview by Instagram. I think Instagram makes it, and it just never worked as well for me as this. This is just super easy and convenient, and it's all in one place, and I look at this app all the time so I don't forget about it, and it's just really nice. But if you do want to have like an actual calendar where you mark the exact days you're going to post and what you're going to post that day, you can always do this in your Google Calendar, so that way it's kind of integrated into your personal calendar and your personal events, and then you don't miss it. So like when I first started to try to plan out my content weeks in advance and be more proactive about what I'm going to post, I had tried to like make a whole separate calendar that I would fill out that was strictly a content calendar, But again, that didn't work for me because I would just forget to look at it. So if you want to schedule it out using the actual calendar, just create a new calendar in your Google Calendar for your Instagram content. Make it a different color so it stands out, and then just schedule like what days you want to post and what you're going to post that day and what times. And then that way it's still integrated into your personal calendar so you don't miss it and you see it every day when you check your calendar. Also, another thing that's helpful is, at least on the iPhone, you can make a widget so that way you see your calendar and your events every single day. So I personally have a Google Calendar widget on my phone. That way I can see what my plans are that day without even having to remember to open the app, because sometimes I don't remember. And then if you have your Instagram content scheduled in your Google Calendar, it'll pop up in that widget and you'll see it as soon as you open your phone. Now, in terms of editing my Instagram content, I personally only post digital illustrations for my actual posts, so I don't need to do any editing with filters or anything. But when I used to share other types of content like photography and stuff and actual photos, I did like to edit them and put filters on them. And for that, I highly recommend Lightroom. Now, this is an app you would have to download in addition to the apps on your phone already, but it's free and there are paid things in the app, like you can pay for people's filters or what they call presets. But you don't have to. You can find a lot of free ones online, or you can make your own. Now, the reason I love Lightroom so much is because it's not just like one of those apps just with standard filters, because sometimes those are annoying because you'll put it on a photo and it won't look as good because the lighting is different or whatever the case may be, but then too bad, you can't do anything about it. But Lightroom has what are filters, but they call them presets, and they're basically broken down into all the different components that make up the filter. So if you put it on there and you're like, oh, this one needs a little bit more exposure or whatever because it's a darker photo than all my other ones, you can adjust just the exposure of the filter and not everything else at the same time. And that way it just gives you a lot more flexibility to adjust little components of the filter when necessary, because not every photo is taken in the same lighting. So it will need adjustments depending on where the photo is and when it was taken. So I just highly recommend Lightroom because it allows you that flexibility, and it's just way better at keeping your photos consistent than just using a standard filter from another editing app. And again, if you're overwhelmed by all those components and you don't think you can make your own, which personally I'm not good at making my own either, you can find a bunch of free ones online, and then if you don't love it but you kind of like it, you can then just kind of use that as a building block and tweak things about it until it fits what you like. Moving on to Reels, I plan these out in a very similar way to my Instagram posts. I use my Photos app. Now for me, I have a separate album for my Instagram Reels called IG Reels, and that's just because I usually will remove the reel from my profile grid so that it only shows up under Reels on my profile, so that way it doesn't like mess up how my feed looks. So if that's what you do, then I would recommend making a separate album to plan out your Instagram Reels. But if you don't do that and you keep them all together on your main feed and you treat them like any other post, then you could really just put them into that same album that you made for your posts. But for me, I don't do this. I keep those content plans separate, so I have one for my posts and one for my Reels. And my planning process for Reels is exactly the same as posts. I just rearrange them in the album based on when I think I'm going to post them. And then I swipe up and I add a caption idea or multiple caption ideas, and I put the date for when I'm planning to post that reel. In terms of editing, I'm still new to this. I just recently started really incorporating Reels into my Instagram content, but I found an app called Splice that I think I would recommend because it's been working well for me so far. I know that Instagram has built-in editing features for Reels. I haven't really played around with these too much, so I'm not really sure if they work well and maybe you don't need an extra app or not. But because I like to schedule out my Instagram content in my Photos app, I like to do all this separate from Instagram. So editing in the Instagram app, even though I could save them as drafts and not post them right away, I don't like the idea of having my Instagram posts planned out and scheduled in my Photos app, but then my Instagram Reels are in the actual Instagram app because they're under my drafts. That's just confusing for me, and I want to keep everything in one place. So you probably could use Instagram to edit your Reels, but I haven't done that myself. I found the app Splice to be very useful. It's free and it's great for editing vertical content because I used to use iMovie if I wanted to edit on my phone, but that is just There are so many things wrong with iMovie. It's a great starter editing app, but once you've used more advanced editing apps, it's hard to go back. Plus, it's not made for editing vertical content, so it doesn't like, I mean, unless I'm just dumb and I haven't figured out how to do this, but it doesn't like adjust to a vertical size. So if you're editing vertical content in there, there will be the black border to make it like the normal rectangular size for a normal video. So then once you export it, you have to crop those out, which is fine, but it's just annoying to edit that way. And then I've also tried using Premiere Pro because that's what I use to edit YouTube videos, and I love Premiere Pro, but it just does not work for vertical content. I mean, it works fine, but it's just annoying to use for vertical content because I film all that stuff on my phone and then I have to export it to my laptop, edit it, and then export it and then send it back to my phone, and it's just like so much moving around and it's so annoying. So I finally just looked for a better app and I found Splice. It's great for editing vertical content, that's what it's made for, and it's free. Now, as every free app is, it does have pop-up ads every once in a while, but they actually haven't been too bad. It's usually just like after you export the video, something will pop up, and it's not that big of a deal. I've definitely used free apps that are much more annoying with the pop-up ads, so it's manageable, it's bearable. And then also, like any free app, there are of course in-app purchases, but this is really unnecessary. You really don't need any of these. You can definitely use it for free. The biggest limitations of the free version are, one, you can't export in 4K, but I really don't think this makes any difference because I'm filming on my iPhone, so I mean, I don't know, maybe the newest iPhones do film in 4K. Maybe I missed that promo, but like, I really don't think there's any difference between exporting in 4K or 1080p, and 1080p is like the standard for if you're using the free version, and 4K is like the bonus for if you're paying, but I really don't think that's necessary at all, so I've just been exporting everything in 1080p and it looks fine. And then the other limitation that might be a little bit more annoying to certain people, but it hasn't really bothered me yet, is that you can only have 2 projects at a time. So one project is one reel that you're editing, so you can only have 2 in progress reels at once. If you want to start a third one and you're not done with the other 2, then you would have to upgrade and pay to be able to make more. But this hasn't been an issue for me because, one, I feel like editing reels is really quick, so I don't need to have a bunch going at once, and 2, I don't like to have a bunch going at once. I'd rather just edit one at a time, and when I'm done with it, I'll export it and then I'll start the next one. So once you've finished and you've exported it, you don't really need to keep that project on there anymore. So this is like technically probably the biggest limitation with the free version, but it hasn't been an issue for me so far. So yeah, I use Splice to edit my reels, and then I use a separate album in my Photos app to organize them and come up with caption ideas and schedule them out. And in the same way that I mentioned with posts, if you are worried about forgetting to look at your Photos app and remember what you were going to post what day, you can once again add these to your content calendar that you created on your Google Calendar so that you remember when to post them. Also, Instagram has, I don't know if this was recent, it was a recent discovery for me, so I assume that they added it recently, but maybe I'm just behind. They have added an option to schedule your Instagram content ahead of time, so you can actually like go and create the entire post, and then at the bottom of that page where you're creating the post, there's an advanced settings button that you click, and then that takes you to a button that says schedule reel or content or something like that, schedule post maybe. And then you can pick an exact day and an exact time that you want that post to go up, and then you just schedule it for that time, and now it's scheduled. You don't even have to worry about going on the app at the correct time to post it. So that's really helpful to use too, either along with your Google Calendar, content calendar, or in place of, if you'd rather just schedule them ahead of time and not even have to worry about like seeing it on your calendar and then going to share it. I will say that I have had some issues with this feature. I don't know if it's just me or maybe this is a common issue and Instagram is working to fix it, but if I schedule too many at once, Instagram kind of freaks out and it'll stop working, and I can no longer schedule more until all of those go out. And then once all of those are out, I can start scheduling them again. So I don't know if there's like some glitch where it hits a cap and it's like you can't schedule anymore until these go out. Maybe they'll fix that. I'm not really sure what that's about, but I've been having issues with that, which is kind of annoying. But if you just stay consistent with scheduling like a week's worth of content, maybe 2 weeks worth, depending on how much you're posting, and then waiting for all those to go out before you schedule the next week or two, that should work fine. And then in terms of stories, I don't have much to say about these. I don't plan out my Instagram stories because they kind of just come up whenever I think to post. For example, if I'm traveling somewhere, then I'll post pictures from my travels. Or if I just go do something cool, a day trip somewhere, I'll post photos from that. Or if I go to a coffee shop to work on some homework or to work on a drawing or something, I'll post my coffee with my drawing next to it or something like that. So those I don't really schedule or plan out ahead of time because obviously that is dependent on my routine or what I'm doing that day, and I don't always know that very far in advance. So my stories are less planned out and less consistent. But I think if your Instagram account is being used for like a very structured, successful business and you have product launches coming up or sales starting or something along those lines, those might be nice to plan out. I would probably use a similar structure to my albums on my photos because that's just the easiest for me. But in terms of creating those stories, I know that Canva has a million templates you can use that you can just kind of tweak to fit your branding better, and a lot of them are free, so you could always do something like that. But yeah, I don't really plan my story content like that because that's not the structure of my account, so my story content is a little bit more sporadic and not planned out. I'll typically go out on an outing, take a bunch of cool pictures, and then post them later. And if I have a bunch to post, I can even post them over a couple days and no one will know that I'm not actually there right at that moment. It just allows me to have more content to share over a longer period of time on my story, which is helpful because I don't always know what to share on my story. And also, it allows me to live in the moment more instead of like snapping a photo and going straight to Instagram to post it while I'm like looking at this beautiful view. So those are all of my Instagram content planning and editing techniques that work really well for me. They are all completely free, and a lot of it just uses the Photos app on your phone, which is super helpful in my opinion and super convenient.